That's where the Gemara had a question for our mission. The Gemara had an interesting answer. It says, talking about that the collection is from an arev. An arev is where it's going to have this halacha where collecting from him, but the zaken is going to be idis, so the bachlev is going to be beinus, and the ksuba is going to be ziburas. But if you actually collect it from the husband himself, actually would be beinus. So, because if it would have been from him, we would have a difficulty. It would have been from the orphans, would have been difficult. The Gemara came up with an interesting answer. So we're collecting from the arev, and the arev, the way the husband is mechayim, so he'll also be mechayim, which is nizak and is indis and by the bachlev is beinus, and then by ksubas isha. Although by him Mechayim would be also beinus, so why is it zibubas? So he said because Lamaisa Ksubas is only collected usually lachamisa, and lachamisa it's from the orphans, and then it's zibubas. This is what's an interesting answer. So that's what we're just going to continue with finishing up the halachas of Arev, because it came into that conversation regarding is Arev even responsible to pay up for Ksuba with the Zayd that took the responsibilities. So that's what we just finished up on that again. Just corresponds because the Cheskel turned to that. Today's daf. So in discussing today's daf are the halacha of our Mishnah, the Eina from a Nichsi Yisayim Elim Zibulas, that the collection from orphans is always going to be only from Zibulas. What happens if, let's say, okay, really from orphans, you're only supposed to collect from Zibulas. But let's say on the document it says that there's a responsibility that they're going to have to give from the best fields. Would they have to, even if, let's say, their father had taken the responsibility of this in the document? Also, you say Mishamah, this that they said that the orphans you could only collect from ziburas. Was that ketanim, minors, or even adults? Would you say that you're also you could only collect when you're collecting from the father's dead, that son, the orphan, you'd only be able to collect from ziburas. Also, the halacha of our Mishnah that said ein mitziin lachilas, peiras. We had a few different things that we said that you cannot collect from the chasim shabadim. The eating of the peiras. Shrach karkais, which these are stolen fields, which was then sold to someone else, and then he produced peiros and shrach karkais. So the question is this that you cannot collect from the chasim shabadim is because it's not written anywhere, because it wasn't part of the sale, or because it's not ksubin, it doesn't have a set amount. Well, anyone who's going to buy from someone is never going to know what his liability is going to, he could factor in. He knows that maybe there was a stolen field, but to know about peiros, that would be impossible to evaluate. So what is the characteristic, what's the criterion why you cannot collect from the chasim shvatim? To begin on the bottom line of the testing the base, Itmar we learned, again, just finishing up the halachas of Arev and the Arev Kablan, Arev Diksuba. So there's really two variables that we're discussing over here in the ability to collect from the Arev. So the Gemara tells us if you're an Arev, which is a lower level of a guarantor, it's not an Arev Kablan as we explained the previous time. Just a regular guarantor, I guarantee you that, if the guy defaults, I'll pay up. And it's of a Ksuba, which by Ksuba, everyone agrees that Arev is not responsible. Why? So first of all, he's just a generic Arev, like we explained, and he's really relying on the husband to pay up. Additionally, she's not really missing anything. She didn't expend any money to give to this husband. It's just that he's accepting upon himself a payment to the woman when they get divorced. So those two factors together exempts the husband, exempts the Arev from paying up that if the husband does not have the money. First of all, it's only an Arev, and it's that of Eksuma. Now, on the other extreme is a Kablin, the Balchlay. Kablin is an Arev Kablin of a creditor. Everyone agrees that, that he would be responsible. Meaning, because there's two things that would hold you responsible. First of all, you're not Stam an Arev, you're an Arev Kablin, which if even without the payment of the borrower, that you're going ahead and you're giving your money already as responsibility. Moreover, that the lender has a loss of money over here. He expended money, he gave money to the borrower. So according to everyone, he's mishtabed, he's indebted to pay up that debt. Now, but then you have the middle cases. So we said on either extreme, we have these two variables. What type of a guarantor are you? And also what type of debt is this? Is this one that is a loss of money to the lender or not? Now, then you could have either one of those two variables. Arev the Balchlay, let's say someone actually gave a loan, the money is a loss, it's a creditor, but you only took the lower level Arev, or Bekablan Diksuba, or you have the case of the guy took a high level of responsibility, or Kablan, but it's only a Beksuba, which she didn't give any money to this in this marriage that she's getting a payout over here. There's a machlekes. What's the machlekes? There's those who say, even though the borrower did not have any assets at the time of the loan, which oftentimes you'll say that the guarantor is not really taking upon himself responsibility. It's like, I just said it because I wanted the loan to happen, but really, I don't expect this guy. I'm not going to take this responsibility because he's not going to be able to pay. No, this man the Arab still takes responsibility. Those who hold that no, he is slave. If the guy has money, so then it's a real thing. It's not like a joke. I think he's going to pay. If not, fine, I'll cover him. He less slave, but if he didn't have any money at the time, even though you had one variable working towards why you would think he would be responsible, either because he was Arab Kablan, or because even if, let's say, it was just a regular Arab, but in the case of Al-Qaid, still lemishtab. He's not going to maybe mishabed himself. It's machlekes is regarding this when you have one and not the other variable, if it would be even if the labor did not have any money or only if he did have. Even though the bar did not have no, you are responsible. You are the arbit guarantor. I don't care if the guy had money, didn't have money. If he was only if it was about chayv, barma arb diksuba, except from the case of arb of ksuba, where first of all she didn't expend any money over there. Second of all, you didn't take arb kabin, you only took a regular arb. There, the avagav, the isla, even if the borrower, so to speak, the husband, no borrowing over here, but even if the debtor had money at the time of the marriage, the arb is not being mishabed himself. My time, what's the reason? Because he's showing himself as a guarantor. That's just to get to make her get married. He's doing a mitzvah, and she's not losing anything. So therefore, there's no shibud of this ariv for the payment of the ksubah. Now, Amar Rav Vina Tashema. This is again, Mazutra had said a teaching on the halacha of Mishnah of ksubas isha b'ziburas. He had said that the ksuba, when you collect from the husband himself, actually will be from Beinis, won't be from Zibur. So the Gemara wants to contradict that from the following brisa. Brisa says, Meikara de Takantin, from the original, the source of the reasoning of the Takana that the Mishnah said, why is Ksuba collection only from Ziburas? Because the more than the man wants to marry, each of us in the previous Daf, the woman wants to get married. So therefore, we don't have to pay her out the highest quality stuff. Says the Gemara, the Isa, anything to say. As Mazdut had explained, that this halacha that you can collect from ziburas is specifically miyasme from orphans. So wait a second, that's not the reason. I'm mishum biyasmehu. The reason why it's ziburas is to collect from Yisrael, but from him it's actually beinis. So why saying because of the svara, because more than the man wants to marry, the woman wants to marry? So Gemara writes to the Mazutra, it's a repetition. Mazutra must be that even when you're collecting from the husband, it's going to be from ziburas and not from beinis, the way the Mazutra said, and because like the Brisa says, because she wants to get married and we don't have to give her anything more than ziburas. Now the Gemara continues with another teaching of Amma Mazutra, says the following teaching. Continuing on this theme regarding orphans and ziburas, as we learned about in the Mishnah. So when you have a document of debt that is coming to be collected from orphans, that their father had borrowed money. So even though, as Rashi explains, that the borrower, their father, their late father, had stipulated with the lender that when you're going to collect from me, you can collect from my best, highest quality fields. No, the collector could only collect from the lowest quality. That's the teaching of Mazuch. So Abaye says, Teda, you should know that, a stipulation does not help against the orphans to make them have to pay for the best, because in general, the Baal Chayv, when you have a regular creditor, Dinai Bebenis, the halacha is that you're supposed to be able to collect from the middle grade. And the Miyasme, still the halacha is when you come to collect from the orphans, the halacha changes. It's busy buddhas. So it's going to be the same thing also when he takes upon himself to pay Idis. That doesn't make a difference. The orphans going to be buddhas because you see, when it comes to Baal Chayv, it's supposed to be Beindis, it comes to Yisrael, it's going to change. So here also, that's the way Abaya qualifies as teaching or proves the teaching Mazutra. On that only, Rabbi says, wait a second. Can you really compare the two cases? This is not a raya. The creditor, not true. Biblically, the halacha is that a creditor is supposed to collect only from the lowest grade. Why would he get this? Like Ula said, because the Amma Ula said, from biblical law, a creditor collects only from ziburas because Shanami brings a pasuk in the bar. The pasuk there is talking about when someone has collateral and he wants to take security from his debtor. So it says that you should stand on the outside. The man that you're trying to collect from, he'll bring out to you the security outside. But the Gemara says, Ula says, what do you see from this pasuk? That what's the norm for the man, the debtor, to take out of his house to pay up? The lowest of his vessels. Because as Rashi says, it's very simple svara. No person willingly will pay up with the best stuff that he has. If he's choosing what to pay up with, he's going to give the lowest that he could give. So therefore, biblically, you see that the debtor could pay up with the lowest stuff that he has. Now, what's the reason that they said, why do we say that a creditor in our Mishnah collects from the middle grade? That's Kadesh Leitinal does that we shouldn't lock the door for the borrowers. Who's going to want to lend money? You're going to give me about your ziburas? I'm not interested in lending. So we have to incentivize people to do mitzvahs. So we'll say it's by the middle grade. Now, however, the orphans, the rabbi said we're going to keep it on its biblical halacha, which is to say, first of all, because it's like shchina, that person should have to die or whatever. But either way, say for the orphans, we're going to keep it on the biblical. It's going to be ziburas. So don't bring me a raya from that case that you see, oh, it changes by your side. It doesn't change. Don't worry, your creditor is also really ziburas. It's only for a rabbinic institution that we make it bainus. By the orphans, we're going to keep it on the biblical level. Now, over here, the case that we're talking about of Mazutra, where that the father, the late father, had written in the document that you're going to collect from my best stuff. Even the biblically, the halacha is from idis. Because like Rashi explains, father had taken that responsibility. That means to say his property became an arev, a guarantor to the lender, and arevus, the guarantee, is a biblical shibud. Like the pasuk in Bereshit Mem Gimel, that when Yosef was down in Mitzrayim and they had to take the brother, he says, I will be the guarantor. You see that the halacha of an arev is a biblical concept. So Afil may ask me not about this. Then what are you talking about? Even the orphan, that creditors should be allowed to collect, even from the best quality. You were trying to bring a raya to Mazutra to say, aha, you see, by the orphans. No, even if you wrote shrach, you're only going to be able to collect from ziburas. And I'll prove it to you because you see, a regular balchlay is supposed to go from bains and from some ziburas. Here also says, what are you talking about? Such different svaras. There, by the creditor, midaraisa, it's ziburas. So by the orphans, you collect from ziburas. Here, midaraisa, it's idis. You took a shibud, the late father, as an arev. The property has arebus, so that the Yisrael should also have to give the idus. Why would you say it would be ziburas? So Rabbi doesn't like the raya of Abaya, essentially saying that maybe Mazutra's halacha is incorrect. However, the Gemara now asks on Rabbi and says, wait a second. Ula Rabbi, that Vartani Avram Chayzav, we have a teaching from Avram Chayzav that says, you can only collect from the estate, the assets of orphans only from ziburas. And even if it's damages, meaning even let's say there was a situation of hezek, you're going to collect from ziburas. Now, says the Gemara on Rav Nizak in the case of damages, that biblically is a case of idis. So how can you tell me that you're going to collect from Yisraelim from ziburas, but you told me that when there's a biblical halacha, that's how you shlug the babaya to say it's not similar. That when it's biblical one way, the Yisrael will also have to give the biblical halacha. So then, why would Avram Chizah say that by Nizakin they're going to pay ziburas? You said that's why in the case of Shrach, when you took a responsibility, they would have to pay it. It says Gemara, no, interesting answer. He says, "How my skin? What are you talking about over here?" talking about where the nizik's best was, and that's why it's a very famous case, because it comes up a lot of times, this case. Idis the nizik, the highest quality of the nizik of the victim was like the lowest of the mazik of these orphans. Now, the Rabbi Shloimy, the Tana of this price of Avram Chizah is going to be Shmuel. The Amud that he says, biblically, really, you're supposed to evaluate, and again, what's important is the word biblically, is the midaraisa, because that's what we're focusing on with Rava and Abai over here. So biblically, we evaluate with the victim's problem. When they take an oil, and we said this already on the previous stuff, from Tikkun on, that was the first approach the Gemara gave for the halacha of our Mishnah. Takinu Rabbanon b'Damascus. The rabbis instituted that will evaluate, as we learned in our Mishnah, with the idis of the Masik. Ooh, regarding the orphans, the rabbi said, no. You only have to give the idis to nizik, which is ziburis of the mazik, because that's the biblical halacha. So it doesn't slug up Rava, because Rava still stands correct to say that there's a difference between what is the biblical halacha. When we said by a regular case that orphans of Balchav can only collect from ziburis, because that's the biblical halacha. It's only rabbinically that they make it from Balchav B'Beiros. And therefore, I disagree with Mazurcha's halacha. If the late father took upon himself responsibility to give from his shma, from his best, yes, he's somebody going to have to give him the best, because that's the biblical halacha. Adei versus the biblical halacha. What do you do with this halacha over here by Nizakin? How could Ram Chazal say that Yishem will give from Ziburis, but the biblical halacha of Idis, of Nizakin is Idis? No. Who's Idis? The Nizik's Idis or the Mazik's Idis? The case of Toma where the victim's Idis is the Mazik Ziburis. Biblically, which we're saying would the Yishem will only have to give according to the biblical halacha, they would only have to give their Ziburis. That's where they're only giving Ziburis. Because the Idis of the Mazik is the rabbinic halacha of Tikkun Olam. So that's what I was saying, you only have to give Ziburis because that's the biblical halacha. But the Gemara continues asking on Rava. Rava had said that when you stipulate, when you made a Tanai, the late father, to his credit, he says, if I don't pay up, you're collecting the best of my stuff. So Rava said, then, not like Mazucha, even from the Yisrael, you'll be able to collect from the best, because that's what the father took responsibility. It's like a harvest, like a guarantee. So is that really so? But we're talking about Eliezer and Nibsa. Says the following teaching: you could only collect from the estate of the orphans, only from the lowest quality, and even if they're the best. Says Gemara, what does that mean? Even if they're the best. So love, isn't it talking about that even though it says, what do you mean? Yeah, even if they had stipulated in the document that the collection will be from the best quality, even so, the halakha is telling us you can only come from zibus. That refutes Rava. Rava had said that when you stipulated, okay, so that's like a arvis, like a guarantee, and that arvis is a biblical halacha. You see not like that from this price. Huh? So the Gemara has a little bit of an interesting answer. Look, no, my idis. What does this Bryce mean over here? That even when this idis, that even though it's written in the loan document, that you cannot collect from the idis, is talking about where shefoi is. Shefoi is from the word of jumping, meaning after the loan, the idis jumped away, that you cannot collect from it anymore. What does that mean? For example, let's say the mob came and took away the property, or a river came and flooded the field, the best field, and it ruined the best field. That nullifies the condition that was written in the document. That from now, that creditor will only be able to collect from ziburis, according to biblical law. Now, because of shleitinol delsberg meilovin, so the rabbi said, okay, they have to collect from the bain in this, as we always say regarding rabbinic law, that the collector collects from bainis. You won't be able to collect from idis, even though he stipulated like that. And by orphans, we're going to keep it on the biblical halacha, which is only from ziburas. And that's what the Bryce is going to be talking about. Because the question was on Rabbi said that when you made it tonight, it's like an arvis. It's a biblical halacha. And by biblical halacha, you said that the orphans would be responsible. So if the Brycing of Philahin Idis saying that even when there's the highest quality that was written in the star, you collect only from orphans from these Ziburas, that was difficult on Rava. Why? You should have to collect from the orphans on the biblical level from the Idis. And that's what the Gemara is giving an interesting answer. This that there were Idis is Shafoi Idis. Yes, there was top quality, but the top quality got ruined or lost or stolen, whatever it is. And now, biblically, you lose Idis and you go down to the biblical halacha, the original biblical halacha, which is from Ziburas, which is, and this answer is for Rava, and it's actually Kedarava, it's like Rava Mishitasai. The Rava says that when you have what's called Shefoi Idis, you actually lose your halacha totally, because it's a chiddush, this halacha. Because if the highest quality field, which is Idis, gets ruined, you'd say, okay, give me second best. No. You lose the whole halacha. You lose the whole Idis. What's this teaching? Rava says like this. It says, his Ziburas. And let's say someone's animal damaged the lowest quality field of the victim. So halach is gleiva, the victim could collect the value of the damages min the idis, because it doesn't make a difference what quality you damage. We assess the value with $20 worth of damage, and then when it comes to nizakin, you collect from the mazik's idis. That's the halach of our Mishnah. Nizakin gleiva min the idis of the mazik. Now, according to, that's even if it's the best of the best, whatever the highest quality field is, you got to give that to the victim. That's idis. According to Rabbi Kiva, that's a biblical halacha. According to Rabbi Shmuel, it's a rabbinic halacha, as we said already in our Mishnah. According to Rabbi Shmuel, really biblically, the niziks idis, but rabbinically from the. So either way, it's a biblical or rabbinic halacha. Now says Rava further, shafai idis. But what happens if after the victim, after whatever the hezek happened, then the mazik had idis, bainis, and ziburas. But there was something that was mamish highest quality, what you call idi idis. Mamish the best of the best. That was mamish best, better than everything else. And that property got ruined. The victim will only collect from middle grade because he loses the halacha of collecting from idis. Why? Because the mazik could tell the victim, nistachva sadeyach, terminology we find in the beginning of the set is Gitin that your field got ruined. It's a metaphorical term, but it could also be literal, as in this case, and it's your mazel that caused it. Meaning to say that you're supposed to collect the best of the best. That field got, after the hezek, it was already like responsible to pay up the damages, and that got ruined. So now you lost that. You really deserve nothing now. Meaning, I could give you even ziburas. They take an ilam, I give you from the bainness. But that's Rava's teaching that you lose your rights. That is your idis that got lost. Now I'll have to pay you monetarily, so I'll give you whatever I can give you. But your rights for idis, it was your loss. So therefore, that says the Gemara could explain this halacha too of Ribelas and Nivsa, that even though when it says Vafilahin Idis, that it says in the Shtar Idis, why are you collecting from the orphans Ziburas? Because you're talking about Shefoi Idis. There was Idis, and there's still even Idis. But the Idis, the best of the best, was ruined. And that's your rights of the Idis of the Shtar. And when you lose that, you lose everything. I can give you now whatever I want to. And so although a regular person will say you got to give bainness, by you're saying them, we'll go now with a basic biblical halacha. Basic halacha is going to be ziburas, and therefore that's what you're going to get from the orphan ziburas.
But all these different categories have a shavuos, and bainness is more than they're different values.
Right.
I mean,
but so, the same value, they're just their quality is different.
So it's not the same value.
It is the same value. In other words, you get smaller for higher quality. You get more for a lower quality. So it's going to be the same value. That's what we're discussing. What's the difference? Seems to be a difference. People would rather have higher quality, even though it's less, even though it's the same value, because you want to have higher quality. It's easier to deal with and it's better. And so it's like having $100 worth of clothing, right? You'd rather have a good shirt that lasts for like a few years, and you have that, or you have 20 shirts that last you 3 days. It's just not worth it. It's the same value, but people can afford a higher quality. It's just people do prefer that. Now, this last sentence, Rashi says, not going on Rava. It's just explaining this brisa of Rabbi Elazar Nifsa, the Gabi Yasmi, like we said, comes to orphans, the rabbis will keep it on the biblical level. It can be ziburis, but again, it's not difficult on Rava who disagree with Masutra, because we had asked a question seemingly that you see even when you're making a Tanai, see the halacha is going to be collecting from ziburis, not like Rava who said when you make a Tanai, then you would be chayim for the biblical halacha of arebus of idis, not like Masutra said, no, it's not true. Of course, here you would be responsible for the idis. It's just shafai idis, and therefore you lose the right to that. We said in the Mishnah, ain't from nixi same element is ziburis. Again, the same halacha that you can only collect from the estate of the orphans only from the lowest quality fields. So the Gemara has a fundamental question. This that we said that from orphans you're only going to collect ziburas. What's considered an orphan? What's qualified as an orphan? We're talking about minors or even adults. So the Gemara explains the question depends on what the svara is. Is it an institution that the rabbis made for the orphans? In other words, to have compassion on the orphans, to keep them with the biblical halacha, so that the creditors should have to go through the effort and try to sell the ziburas, because the orphans don't have who to take care of them, who to help them, to claim the kind of them. There's no one there to help them. So the rabbis came along, they were masakin, and said, you know what? We're going to make it easier for the orphans. But that says the Gemara, that would only be applicable for minors. But the Rabban wouldn't do this. So you have someone that's an orphan that's 73, his father passed away, right? So he's an orphan. Yasim. What do you mean? But he could take care of himself. We wouldn't make a special takana to make it easier that he shouldn't have to, okay, give it to the creditor that you see, let him figure it out. No, you're an adult. You can take care of it yourself. Maybe no. Maybe it's not a takana. Because a takana would only be for katana. Rather, this is the halacha to make sense that on the biblical halacha, that we're going to maintain it for the collection on ziburas, because what's the reason why we said a collector usually collects on Beinin is that's only because of, like we said, because Nilas Del is closing the door. That a collector can only collect from his loan from ziburas, I'm not going to lend it. But therefore, even if the rabbis were not masakin to collect from Yisrael from Beinin is, which means say from orphans, if you collect from ziburas, there still wouldn't be Ne'ilas Delas. It wouldn't close the door. A lender doesn't entertain to say, oh, that maybe it'll close the door, that he has to be concerned that maybe the mislava but not for nixi kamiasma. No one entertains to say, wait a second, I'm gonna lend this guy money. He might drop dead tomorrow. I'm gonna have to come collect from his orphans and they're gonna give me only ziburas. Probably Ne'ilas Delas, that would be considered closing the door. No one's entertaining that. So in other words, it's really basically as the klal of when the Rabbanan make a takana, which the whole bainness was a takana, mila delas, and like type of thing, like goes a bit Rabbanan, like the guy has to, if the guy drops dead, then are we going to make that on his orphans also? They'll have to give bainness. In other words, the person's not going to close the door. People want to know, I can collect bainness, I'll lend money. But if he drops dead and from his son, I'm not going to collect. People are not going to entertain that. So therefore, this halacha would be nami. Then if that's the reason, it should even be for adults, because it's an idea that no one's entertaining to think that this is going to happen. So it won't close the door in front of the borrowers. So what's the reasoning of this halacha from the Yisraelim? It's going to be from ziburas. Is it because we made a special takana because they have no one to take care of them? Then you're right, it should only be applicable for kadanim. Or is it no? Because when we said bainness rabbinically, it's because of Nila Delis, it's not going to close the door if it's now from the orphans, and therefore it could even be from the Gedolim, from Ziburas. The Gemara says, Toshima, speaking of Raya, the Tanya Abaya Kashisha taught the following price. This that they said the halacha is by orphans is Gedolim, is by adult orphans, then to say from minors. So you see, clearly, the halacha of Yisayim is in Gedolim says, wait a second, it doesn't say which halacha is talking about. Maybe that halacha is talking about a different halacha. Talking about the halacha of an oath. Chacham said, whoever's coming to collect from the nechasim of Yisraelim could only collect only if they swear, even if they're producing a document. Because had their father been around, maybe he would have claimed and said, swear to me that I didn't pay you. And we would make him swear, as the Gemara says in Shavuos and Malvim. So now we go ahead and we make a claim for the orphans, what's called Taininan, and for that, you're right. Even for Gedolim, we would go ahead and say that the orphan would mandate that the collector would have to make a shiur. Why? Oh, that makes sense. Why? Because the gadol b'midah abuch, an adult regarding his father's estate is like a minor because he doesn't know if his father paid him or not. His father passed away, and suddenly he's getting all these documentations of all these collections. Well, so I said, I'm not my father's accountant. Yeah, but so what do I know, right? So that makes sense. In ziburas, regarding the collection of ziburas, that I would tell you that no, the reason is because the Rabbanan were concerned that we need to take care of the assignment to make it under biblical halacha. Well, that would be only applicable for minors and not for adults. So that wouldn't be a raya from Bay Kashisha. His halacha, even Gedel, might have been only for the halacha of shiur and not for the collection of zibur. So, but the halacha concludes, Velch's halacha is that Gitin Daf is that Yisayim Sha'amru, the orphans that we said are gedolim, are even adults. Bein tzarich become I don't have to say for sure it applies to minors, and it's bein l'shvur and bein l'ziburis. So it's not only for the halacha of an oath, but even for ziburis, because like we said, there's no concern really for the tikkun oila. The halacha really was that we made bainness rabbinically, even though biblically it's really ziburis because of shleitin adults when they love it. And that Rabban said that no one's thinking that if the guy dies and then his 70-year-old son, I'm not going to be able to collect from, that now he's not going to lend anymore. People are not worried about that. And therefore, even from the Gedolim, you'll only collect from ziburis. We said in the Mishnah, the ain from and the chasim mishabadim, you cannot collect from collateral from sold off properties in a place where there are available ones by the borrower. Because Rashi explains really belongs in the Mishnah, because the buyer is not going to come to fight and say, wait a second, collect from him. The guy has available properties. What are you coming to us for? So you cannot collect from stuff that he sold off if he still has properties that you could collect from for the debt that he owes. Now, but by Rabachta by Baram, it says the following question: the matana, what's the halacha by a gift? Meaning, if there's a shibud of mishabadim, but not because of a sale, but because he gifted it to someone else after he borrowed from someone. Now, he left over that he has by himself the zibur is the lowest grade. What's the halacha? Do you say, okay, the borrower who had borrowed before, so the gifter was afterwards, which is a lien on the guy's property, what's called machasim mishabadim, you have a lien on all his property, even if he sells it off, you could collect from those buyers. But would you say that the guy who received the gift says, yeah, but when he gifted me, he still has ziburas by him that's available. You have to collect from that. Or do we say, no, I'm a Baal Chayiv, and I can collect from baininess, even though it's mishabadim. So the Gemara explains the question. Takan to this that the rabbi is instituted that you cannot collect from the chasim mishabadim. The bishop said because the loss of buyers, meaning a buyer is never going to want to buy from anyone. It's like if the guy has any outstanding debt, they're going to come and talk to you. They say, no, don't worry. If you bought them and you left over, making sure that he has some properties, no matter how inferior, he won't come to you. So that's a takana for a buyer. But regarding a guy who received the gift, there's no loss of a buyer. In other words, you have no claims. You got a handout. So maybe we didn't make this takana. Maybe it's takana. About could go and collect from his bainness from the mishbad, even though his debtor has ziburas. Like maybe no matananami. Maybe a gift is the same as a sale. Why? Why I should make a takana for a guy who received the gift? You have to understand how gifts work. If this debtor had not had any benefit from this guy, wouldn't have given him a gift. There's a reason why he's giving him a gift. It's the same equivalent as a loss of a kufas. Maybe we instead, even over there, not be able to collect from the chasim mishabadim, meaning from the guy, from the recipient of the gift, if they're still available by the borrower. So I'm only mark Shisha Berei Daf Chizal Avash. As Tashmat's being arrived in the following price. It's a little bit of a complex price, but it answers the question. The price is like this: Shchimera, a dying person, Shamar, that he said like this: Shnu Masayim Zuz Laplain. Give 200 zuz to Yenim. We give Almeya's Laplain. Give 300 to the other Yenim. And Madame Nes Laplain, give 400 to the third Yenim. There's 3 Yenims. One 200, one 300, one 400. Okay, he says the Bryce like this. We don't say whoever was the earlier in the document of the commands of the dying person, it's called the tzava, that he is zacha, that he merits to get it first. Meaning to say that the later one should only take what the first one left over. Meaning to say that if there's any lacking, that they won't get anything, that the first one shouldn't lose. No, we don't say that. Because since he didn't say, as the next case, he's going to say, give to plenty, then after the plenty, then after him give to the next one, and then after give to the other one. So his order wasn't precise. You just can't say two things at the same time. So you're just saying, give this guy 200, give this guy 300, give this guy 400. You don't say that the earlier the star is going to be the one who merits first. Leviga, therefore. Now the ramification of this halach is like this: Yatzalav shtar chayiv. If there's an outstanding debt that comes out against this person who died, after these three people already collected, so this dying person had $1,000 in his pocket, and he says, "It's all I have in this world. And you three buddies, you guys are my best friends. He gives you get 200, you get 300, you get 400. He splits it out. He divides amongst the three of them. Now it turns out someone comes running in after the guy dropped dead, and this guy he split it to his three friends. And what do you mean? He owes me money. And you guys took from his pocket the last money he has. So the halacha is, in other words, all three guys have to lose out. Each one according to how much their portion is. As Rashi explains in an interesting way, he says that the one who got the 400 is going to lose more than them all. Because halacha is, what you really do is, you go back and you divide it after they pay up that person from the portion of one of them. Meaning, if let's say, the guy who was owed money was owed 100. So then you're going to divide it into 9 parts. This guy's going to pay up 2 portions. This guy's going to give 3 portions. This guy's going to give 4 portions because that's a ratio of 4 to 3 to 2, which was their ratio of what they got. Basically, proportionately to whatever it is that they got is how much they're going to have to give. So that'll pay up the debt. So they're all going to have an equal loss in this debt. And again, that's only because he didn't say afterwards and then afterwards. They're all equal. They just, no one has more rights than the other one. But here's where the different case is. If he says to the plenty, first give 200 to this guy, and then afterwards give to 300 to that guy, and afterwards give 400 to that guy. We say, okay, whoever is earlier in the document, he gets the rights. And I figure if there's a decrement of debt that comes out against this dead person, you're going to collect from the last guy. Meaning that even if there's a shtar chayiv that comes out before they collect, and this collector had collected his debt, the first one on the tzava is going to be the first one to collect whatever's left over until he gets whatever his debt is. And then the second guy, and the third guy is going to lose out. So here also is it doesn't make a difference. Now, what happens if Yomei? What happens if the last guy doesn't have enough to pay up the debt of the document? The guy who's collecting says, "I'm owed 500, whatever it is." The last guy says, "I only got 400." Okay, then good, Mishlabana. Collects from the guy beforehand. Yomei, if it's not enough to pay up from him, good, Mishlabana. Then you collect from the guy who's before, in other words, the first guy. Okay, that's the end of the brisa. What do we want from this brisa? It says the Gemara like this. This teaching that we just said is qualified as follows. Even though the first guy, when he collected from this, wasn't cash, he collected fields. Even though the first guy collected bainis, ubasa ziburis, and the last guy collected ziburis, the lowest quality, miziburis guy. You're going to collect from the last guy, the ziburis, like we said, because the first guy has kedima. And he tells him that that it was first meshubed to me before he said va'achrav leplani. Mine were meshubadim, and yours was still b'nei chayrin. So the halacha of the collection is on yours. So therefore, the halacha is that the last guy is what your halacha is to take from. The bainis legov. He's not going to collect from the bainis of the first guy. Ooh, says the Gemara, what do you see from this? Shmamina. B'matana nami avu rabbanan takanta. You see, even though this was gifts, he was giving away this dead person to one guy 200, one guy 300, one guy 400. We're still going to say you cannot collect from the chasim mishubadim, which was the first guy's collection, when there were b'nei chayrin, which was the second and the third guy's collections. Even though he has the bainus that the collector really wants to get from, but the fact that he left him with ziburis by the last guy, you're going to collect from the last guy. Now, that answers our question, because this is a case of matana, and so we're saying that you don't collect from the chasim mishubadim even by matana. So the Gemara says, no, it's not a raya. Why not? What are we talking about here is the Baal Chayv. We're talking about by a creditor, meaning those that he had said on them, give them 200, give them 300, give them 400, were lenders. They weren't recipients of gifts. So, okay, by Baal Chayv, yeah, you're going to say al takanta, just like a lender, just like whatever it is. You'll say that you cannot collect from the chasim mishabadim. It says, how could you say that they were owed money, but he said give, as if it's a matana? He was saying give in for my debts. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? If that's the case, look at the documents of the loans, the man Kovim, who's first. Why going after whoever's earlier or later in the tzavah? And also, when you don't say ba'achra, so why collecting from them all? It doesn't depend on, did he say ba'achra or not? It doesn't make a difference who's earlier or later in the tzavah. It's whose loan was first. That's how the laws of Kedima go for creditors. There is no loan document. It was oral loans. You have no way of verifying from the documents. It says, but how could you say that? But you spoke about whatever is earlier in the document. In the case of La'akrav and La'akrav, you said that there is a document. It says, no, that's the document of the command, meaning of the tzavah. That's the document that we have. We don't have a document, and therefore that's why he said tenu, and because there is no shtar, and therefore again that's why there's going to be halacha of not collecting from the chasim mishabadim, because again it's not a matana, it's a case of a Baal Chayv. So it's not a riot. That's rejection number one. Levi said, if you want, you could say that truthfully, that if the first guy had baininess and the last guy had ziburis, you actually would collect from the first one and take your halacha of baininess. And this gears is a little bit difficult, as Marshall points out, but afila matana nami, meaning even by gift also, meaning to say, by a gift, maybe I could tell you that we would not say the halacha, meaning we thought we're being a raya from this halacha, we're rejecting it. We're saying maybe not. Maybe by matana you would not say that you cannot collect from the chasim mishabadim b'agum sheish b'nei chayv. But then the difficulty is, then why are we saying you collect from the last guy? It says it's not difficult. My government achron, what does it mean you collect from the last guy? You don't really collect from the last guy. You could collect from the chasim mishabadim when that mishabadim was only a gift, and this is a gift, like you said to know. It just means a nifsed el achron. What it really means to say is that the only one who's going to lose out is the last one. Meaning, even if you're going to collect from the first guy, because this collector wants to get his bainness, and it's the first guy who has the bainness, and not like the last guy only has the ziburas. But guess what's going to happen then? The first guy's going to go to the last guy and collect from him, because he's going to say, you shouldn't get before me. I have kedima. So even though we're not going to prevent the collector from going to the first guy, but ultimately the first guy's anyways going to the last guy. So we just mean to say that when we say you collect from the last guy, it doesn't mean literally. It means the collection is going to end up by the last guy. So again, that's rejection number two. No raya. Maybe you could collect from the chasim mishabadim b'matana. And rejection number three, if you want, you could say that no, it's dafka that you're going to collect only from the last guy. And even so, you cannot answer the question of ein nefran regarding matana. Why not? Isn't that answering it clearly? So you want to know, you know what we're talking about? Shabu Kulu, we're talking about all the properties that the three guys had collected were lahadam. They were all the same. They were either all bainis or all ziburis or all idis. If that's the case, there's no reason for the collector to go to the first guy over the last guy, and then he'll go to the last guy because he's the last guy. But if the first guy had baininess and the last guy had ziburis, maybe you would be allowed to go to the first guy, and he wouldn't say that you cannot collect from the Chasam Shabbat. There's 3 rejections from the Rai, and we didn't answer the question what the halacha is regarding imatana if you say this halacha, this takana. I said in the Mishnah that ein mitziin lachilas peiros. You don't collect if a person bought a field that the Meicher had stolen. So the Nigzil reclaims his field with all the peiros that the Lekech planted. The Lekech then collects the money he paid for the field from the Meicher plus the peiros, and then the improvements to the field. That's what's called achilas peiros and shvat kakars. Now, the Chama initiated that only the money for the field may be collected from the Meichers and the Chasam B'Shabbat. And the peiros and the shvat are only from the Chasam B'Neichari. So it says the Gemara on that halacha of that type tikkun olam, the tikkun olam that means to say you could only collect the actual value of the field from the Chasam B'Shabbat, but you cannot collect for the produce that you produced or from the benefit that you made to the field, which was a stolen field you didn't know about, and you come to collect. My time, what's the reason why you cannot collect that from the Chasam B'Shabbat? So Ma'ulam Shlakish, she says, Lafisha ain't kisuvin. Says because they're not written. What does that mean? So Rashi explains, these peiros, when you wrote a document of the sale on this stolen property, he didn't know it was stolen property, he bought a stolen piece of property. Those peiros weren't there in the world yet. It was only written in the shtar that this guy sold this guy this piece of property with insurance. So therefore, the value of the property is like a mill in the shtar. It's like a loan in the document, which, yeah, you could go collect where this guy took responsibility. But the value of the peiros are like an oral loan because it wasn't there yet, and therefore you cannot collect from the Shabbat. But like any mill on that. Now, although the seller did write to him, I know Ikim, the shopping, Vina, Elaine, Inon, Bamalain, Rishapche, and the Peidain. Rashi explains there's a text that is said regarding the responsibility that the seller takes, and he takes all types of responsibility. So why shouldn't that be considered a responsibility on the peiros too? So it says that only helps that the seller is responsible that you could collect from his available profits, but not from Mishabab, because the reason of the loan in the document that you collect from Mishabab is because the word gets out. And this writing that he did, which whatever you're going to do to improve and everything, I'll take responsibility, that the word doesn't get out. Because other piece of property, the word gets out that this guy sold this property. Everyone's cucking in the cuck levels. Everyone's saying that, oh, you heard he sold this property. And he took responsibility. But in the peiros, which are not yet here in the world, although he quote unquote took responsibility, the word doesn't get out. So therefore, since it's not written in a document anything about actual peiros, so therefore that says ula in the name of Rish Lakish is why you cannot collect from Chasam Shabbat. However, Amalei Reb Abba said to Ula, who said this interpretation, says, I'll ask you the following question. The responsibility that a husband has to feed his wife or his daughter after he passed away from the ksuba is the command of chsibidam. It's like as if it's written, because it's what's called a t'nai bezin. It's a stipulation of the court that you have to do this. Now, when she gets married to him, the word comes out that he's responsible to her. As the Mishnah teaches in ksubas, that if he didn't write it for her, which is written in Ksuba, he's still going to be chayv anyways because it's t'nai bezin. And and still the Mishnah tells us that in our Mishnah itself that you're not going to be able to collect for that. Why not? You told me no reason why you could not collect for painless and shvach kakov is because not written. But if it was written, it sounds like you're saying that you would be able to collect. Mazni Isha Avans is like written because t'nai bezin, and still you cannot collect from that either from the husband. That must be not the reason. So Lay says no. Hasan Yikara Hachi Iska. There, from its inception, the rabbis instituted the t'nai bezin was that kesuvin ein etzel b'nei chayim. It's going to be considered as written that the husband, his estate is going to be responsible only what's available in the estate. But the ein kesuvin ein etzel mishabadim. It's not going to be quote unquote like written for mishabadim for sold off properties. So it's not going to be considered as written regarding mishabadim. The reason for that is because no one's going to ever want to buy a field from his friend if his widow and his daughters are going to collect from him forever. Like the guy's going to tear up Jed at 72, and then his wife and his orphan are going to say, hey, yeah, we have Mazni Shvabanis. So that's why it's from its initial inception, although, yeah, quote unquote, like Subim, it was not Kesubim regarding Shabbat.
Is there a shlukish reason or the fish and ksivin because they don't exist yet, or because it's not considered ksivin? Because by Muslim Ishvarunis, it's considered ksivin, but it doesn't exist either. Rashi explained that fish and ksivin because it doesn't exist. Fish and the dam shas ksivin, so it doesn't have a cup.
I hear. It sounds like that the Muslim Ishvarunis is really here already because it's something that you don't know how much, but it's really here. That's what the Gemara's next point is going to be. But it's you're saying you're taking responsibility, so you know about it. You can be considered consumed, but for Paris, we don't know if that's going to ever happen. We don't know if this guy's going to do anything to the karka. And says the Gemara that the reason why you cannot collect for Paris, that because it's not written. However, on that only Rabasi says, "Well, Muslim Ishva is what do you do?" The same question, like we said, the wife and the daughter, the commander Chasivim, it's like it's written. We don't even see. Still, we say that you cannot collect. Well, he says no. Mikara asking. That's how it's originally answered. It's only considered written for the Nechayim. But the English it's Mishabadim. It's not considered written for Mishabadim. And again, different. That's the difference between the cases. Thank you. Anytime.
That was a little sprint.
Yeah, I got it. This is starting up on Thursday. Wednesday still. Yes, I got it.
How appropriate.
A little later next week. Next week is the 3 weeks. No, there's and batteries got out.
Yeah, I thought so.
It was on, but batteries were out.
It didn't work.
Battery was sometimes like you get like a vibe, like it's like feeling like you're pushing.
No.
Yeah.